Hello and welcome to another episode of the Nocturne Society. Tonight is the Halloween edition. We're coming up on the end of October and Halloween is 2 days away. So in light of that, there has been many Halloween videos, many Haunted America videos, many haunted location videos, and I wanted to say something about them. In a video I watched recently, there was top 5 haunted places in America. One of these places was Villisca Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa. I personally have spent the night at Villisca, getting there at about 7 at night, staying until dawn. So I would like to talk a little bit about that and talk about a growing trend I have seen in the paranormal. Now, when we arrived at Villisca, we noticed immediately that there was a large power grid across the street. The owner of the home met us outside, and we immediately said, "Oh, this could be part of the issue," because it's often linked that power lines and high electricity can be linked to haunted locations. This is due to, believably, like the frequencies, the buzz, the energy put off by these places causes odd feelings in people. Completely psychological. And she said, "We've been told that by a lot of ghost teams." I went there with the Southern Wisconsin Paranormal Research Group, which I must say was one of the more professional groups I've ever met. They were no nonsense and all business. And when we arrived, there was a gentleman there that we didn't know. She said to us, the owner said to us, "This man won a contest I had to stay the night with you guys." We hadn't agreed to that, nor been told about that. But since she was the owner of the home and we were guests, we had little choice but to agree. The night began with the standard setting up of the lights and setting up of the sound system, the audio captures, and setting up cameras throughout the home, which the place had no power, so we were at the mercy of our battery packs. The temperature monitors, so forth, were all set up throughout the house, and then we split into teams. And the teams were like about 3 people. One would monitor things outside, one would go inside. And the gentleman that had won her contest wanted to go in with every team. And each team he went in with, while the actual ghost hunting members were quite professional and no nonsense, not playing around, they were actually there for a reason. This gentleman was jumping at every sound. When things got to feeling like there was a lull, he would often say, "Do you guys notice something? Do you guys feel that? Do you guys hear that? I thought I heard a voice," etc., etc., etc. The leader of the team brought us aside and said that he believed this guy was a plant of some sort by the owner to get a rise out of us and have us definitely feel like something is going on. So we were told to ignore him. Don't let him Don't let him get you carried away. Don't let him influence your feelings. So we pretty much the rest of the night ignored him and purposely separated him from teams that were inside doing things as much as we could. We interviewed the neighborhood before it got dark because the owner and so forth seeing things is one thing, but the people that are not involved, that would be much more, it's good to know that too. So we interviewed many of the neighbors that were home that lived around the house, and they all said the same thing, which was, it's just an old house that something tragic happened in. They weren't very happy that she was trying to turn this tragic place into a tourist attraction. Now, if you're not familiar with the Villisca Axe Murder house, in the 40s, there was a family of 5, and 2 friends of the family, children, staying over. So there was mother, father, and the rest were all children, 2 of which were neighbors staying the night. Someone they believed was already in the house came down from where they think was the attic and chopped everyone up with an axe, smashed their faces in. There was axe marks in the ceiling where he did large swings and hit the ceiling. And then when they found the bodies, their faces were covered with towels. He covered up their faces. They believe he stayed for the night or so forth and disappeared and was never captured. Now, this leads people to believe things like, oh, they never got closure. They never get to rest because their captor was never, their assaulter was never found, the murderer. And these are lovely theories, but there is no hard set rule that any of that means anything. Now, the skeptic in me, which is huge, the skeptic in me really wants to be cautious of those tales because like I said, there is no law. This is all just people that have unfinished business are going to be banished to the earth until their will is done. That's just mumbo jumbo. There's no proof of any of that. This is all just hearsay and legend brought up by people that aren't dead. Now, the night we stayed in the house, there were a few odd things. Nothing I would say was a paranormal event. We had a person snapping pictures out front of the house, and she had a digital camera, which at the time was pretty cutting edge. And she would snap a picture, look at the image, and delete it if there was nothing on it. Then snap a picture, look at the image, delete it if there was nothing on it. And she was in my peripheral doing this, and all of a sudden she's like, oh my gosh guys, look at this. She came running, and there was lights. Now, it was similar to what you've seen when people say it's nothing more than insects flying, and it's causing a strobing light spectrum, light line across the screen, which, okay, I could see that. However, there was multiple lines, and I'll try to put it up on the screen here. There was multiple lines with the same pattern. So it was like a repeat of itself. And you'll see it in the picture. There's a line with a curve, and then another line underneath it with the same exact curve, and another line with the same exact curve. Now, if it was a bug, it wouldn't have a pattern. And also, that doesn't necessarily mean it's something paranormal. That should be the last thing you grab a hold of, is that the answer is that it's something paranormal. That's the absolute last resort. By all means, extinguish everything that is logical and could be something within the realms of reality before you jump to it's a paranormal event, it's a ghost, etc. Because you're out looking for it, that doesn't mean that is what it is. Use your heads. Don't get trapped in the hype of it all. So there was that event. The second event was the temperature gauge. We had a digital meter recording temperature from the entire night, and the strange thing was that at one point in the night, the average temperature, it was a summer night, the average temperature was in the 70s Fahrenheit. And at one point, it dropped to 40. It dropped down into the 40s and then back up into the 70s. So why that happened, I don't know. That's a pretty drastic temperature change. Now, that could have been a faulty gauge, and it is believed by some that cold spots are the result of paranormal activity, but again, nothing has proven this to be true. So the final thing was we were doing EVP. Now, if you know what EVP is, that's where you speak and record what's being said. And it's extrasensory voice phenomenon. And you record what's being said. And sometimes you'll hear a voice in an answer to a question that you give that is not heard in the room with the other people. So you would say something like, well, what we did, we said, we were in the room with one of the children that was killed, and we said, what is your favorite candy? And heard no response, continued asking questions, and then upon listening to the tape later, it sounded as though there was a child's giggle after that question. Now, the house is in town. It's not alone on a hill. It's in a town. Neighbors are within view all around it. Like a normal yard in a suburban town. It is not abandoned by any means. It's not far away on its own. So noises from just the town and the neighborhood easily happen. Now, I took the sound file to our sound studio at my place of work, and they tried to clean it up as much as possible, but nothing definitive could be saved from it that would say, yes, that was the sound of a little girl's giggle. So it could have been anything, and so again, nothing definitive. So those are the three events that happened, and like I said, when you're watching these, listening to paranormal location videos on YouTube, listen to what they say. They'll say something along the lines of, this is so haunted that it gets visited by many paranormal groups every year. That you want to watch out for. Because very often those paranormal groups are paying to get in. They're paying to stay the night. It has become a tourist attraction that someone is making money off of. And in light of that, you can't trust anything that's happening. Because what do they want? As owners of these, of people making money, they want the people to continue to come. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to make it alluring and make it seem like things are happening. So you just have to be careful. You have to use your head. That is the biggest thing. People say, is there anywhere you're scared to stay the night at? No. Because I don't freak out. I don't get carried away with the events at hand. If you hear something, you hear a crash, you hear a voice, you have to just use your head, stop and think. Last night at 3 a.m., I went to bed. I walked up the stairs from the basement into a dark house. And standing in the living room was a shrouded figure. He wasn't moving. I didn't know what it was. I stood and stared at it in the dark, trying to analyze what is this, until I finally realized I don't know what it is. I walked forward towards it and touched it, and it was a coat rack that my partner had moved because she was doing some photography sessions. So it was in a place it wasn't supposed to be, covered in a scarf and a dress that people had been wearing. So it looked like a shrouded figure standing in the living room. But I didn't freak out. I didn't run off screaming. I logically stood there and thought, what is this thing I'm staring at? Because the last thing I think it is a ghost. Now that is not to say I haven't had things happen I can't understand, and things happen that I can't explain, because I have. So I'm not saying there's nothing out there, nothing going on. I'm saying use your head, trust in science. Now, Halloween in general was not this time of creepiness and evil and scary happenings. It was a time when the pagan religion celebrated their ancestors, which the Christian religion twisted into evil, and spirits are evil, and demons, and etc., etc., etc. So this whole holiday is a twist on ancient religions, ancient pagan religion, which takes the fun out of it all, and I understand that, and you want to have fun being scared, and you want to dress up in costume, and that's great. That's absolutely fine. And it is fun, I enjoy it as well. But I just wanted to bring some sanity into all these videos that get... I get very frustrated when I see a video that is obviously a Photoshop video or something done in video editing. I mean that is blatantly obvious, and without a doubt, there's always people in the comments saying, "Oh my gosh, is this real?" And that's how these things get carried away. So the things I have had happen that I can't explain, I have mentioned before, and the big things have been, if you go back through the Nocturne Society audio archives, most everything is in there. And the things that have happened that aren't in there, I don't know. There's been some events I don't know. Now, in this house, which this is just a plain old house, I was here in my office space in the basement, which is a finished basement. I'm not going to show it to you. And my girlfriend was sleeping in the second floor, so that's 2 floors above me. I had my headphones on, which are sound canceling headphones. And in the middle of the night, I heard a sound in this house. And I've never heard a sound like that before. It wasn't outside. It was winter. The windows are closed. It was in this house. And my girlfriend heard it as well. To my ears, with the headphones on, I took them off and I heard it again. I heard it continue and then it stopped. It sounded like it was right upstairs. To her, in the bedroom, it sounded to her like it was right outside the door. She also heard it. Now the thing that's confusing is that we have a cat. So I have settled on the idea that the sound we heard was from the cat. But it is not a sound I've ever heard a cat make, ever. And cats make strange sounds. They make very strange sounds sometimes. But grew up in the country, we had cats everywhere. Cats fighting each other, cats upset, cats meowing, cats... And I've never heard a cat make this sound before. I have heard animals make a sound like it, but not a cat. So the sound we heard, it's embarrassing to make the sound, but I can make a sound pretty close to what I can describe it as. And let me make it for you right now. So that was what it sounded like to me. To me it sounded like a pig. It sounded like a squealing pig. But of course, there isn't a pig in our house. I heard it and I was like, what was that? I went upstairs, nothing, darkness. Turned the lights on, nothing. The cat was asleep. He got up and meowed at me. So I was like, okay, I must be hearing something that... I had my headphones on, so maybe I didn't hear it correctly. And I just went back to what I was doing. Then when I went to go to bed, my girlfriend was in bed with her 2 boys. So generally what I do is I go to bed, I wake her, she leaves them and comes to bed with me. Because she's, there for them until I go to bed. So when I went to bed and I asked her, we got up and I brought her, and I said, did you hear that sound? And she said, yes. It was terrifying. And I said, did the boys hear it? And she said, yes. They heard it as well. They asked what it was, and she said, it must be me downstairs playing a video game. But she said she knew it was not. So, I don't know what that was. It hasn't happened again. It's been over a year. Hasn't happened again. The second thing that has happened, and this, I've had many strange things happen while you're almost falling asleep, which is a time, if you watch any science shows, when your brain starts screwing with you, and you start hallucinating, you start not seeing what's really there, and not really knowing what's happening. And on this occasion, I was falling asleep, and I felt something touch my foot, which was out of the covers, the blankets. I felt something touch my foot, and I consciously was awake enough to go, what touched my foot? There's nothing there. And I moved my foot in the direction of the thing that touched me, and I touched it. And then my brain turned back on and was like, you need to wake up, shit's happening. So I immediately, sat up in the bed, and there was nothing there. Now, I just said, that is just my brain playing tricks on me. So I kind of blew that off. And then another night, I was getting ready for bed. And I went upstairs and went into the bedroom. My girlfriend was in the bathroom. We were kind of talking to each other through the doorways. And I pulled my shirt off, and something touched my shoulder. And I jumped back because somebody touched me, and there's nobody, just her and I in the house. So my dad experienced that a lot. He worked in a place that was once a dance hall in the 1800s. He converted it into a wood shop. And he said all night long, while he was working late hours, he would feel taps on his shoulder. He said it became so common he just ignored it because it happened so often. But he always said it sounded like, it felt like somebody asking to cut in, tapping on the shoulder for a dance. Because that used to be the polite way to ask to change partners, to do a tap. So we're coming up on almost 30 minutes here. I have found the shorter the video, the more views it gets. Now, what is the Nocturne Society? Now, I have given that some thought. Obviously, I'm a gigantic skeptic. Obviously, I'm not going out anymore and investigating paranormal locations, although I wouldn't be upset to do so. I would still do so if asked. I live in the Ontario-Toronto area right now. I'm an American living in Canada. So what is the Nocturne Society? And I have given that some thought, as I said, and I would like, I think, if anyone's interested, I would like it to be a private paranormal group that discusses current paranormal events, past paranormal events, comprised of people that are, occult experts, demonology experts, paranormal experts, parapsychology experts, etc., 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 gathered together on a possibly private forum that discusses what's happening. Keep it private, keep out the riffraff and the people that, what I mean by riffraff, are the people that are just there to troll people and cause problems. We don't need any of that. The internet's got plenty of that. We need a place where people can actually talk about things. And I think that would be something that would be very interesting. What is my expertise? Well, I've been dead. And I don't mean a little. I was it's a little challenging to talk about sometimes. I was brought back through. My heart needed stents, and I didn't know it, so I had a heart attack. And so yeah, I had to be resuscitated and shocked with the paddles, the whole everything. I was shocked 12 times. And doesn't make me an expert on anything, but what makes things interesting is that I was warned about it months before by someone I had never met. Contacted me through a way that she couldn't have contacted me if she was actually knew who I was. This is all explained in the audio archives. But something in her dreams was warning her about an event happening to me. And then it did. And without me telling her what that event was after it happened, she said the messages stopped. And then I told her I had a heart attack. So, a lot of unexplained things there, which I have spent many years trying to unravel. I'm a man who would love there to be something more to the world. Something spiritual or something supernatural. Something bigger than us that we are able to tap into. But I am also a realist. I believe in science. I don't like to be feeling like a fool for jumping on the train of grandma's still living in the house because she forgot to finish her crochet. Having been dead, I have my doubts about the existence of us after. So anyway, I was hoping to put something like that together. If what I say interests you at all, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I don't believe I currently have any subscribers. I have Twitter, I have Facebook, I have a blog page, Nocturne Society. The NocturneSociety.com is no longer because it was getting no activity and I was paying for it. It could come back, of course, if things need to come back. Listen to the audio archives. I'm not a person that plays around too much with this stuff. It's kind of it's a fun subject for me. I like the feeling of being afraid, of being scared, of not knowing. But I'm not an idiot. I'm not a fool. I don't believe everything that someone tells me. I need to experience it. I need to extinguish all other facts before I'm willing to accept it. So, I hope you all have a safe and scary Halloween. Fun Halloween. And for the other 364 days, come to Nocturne Society and let's explore things and find out the real truth. Good night.